Hey everybody, welcome back. I apologize if I sound stuffy. I have been a little bit under the weather the past couple days. The seasons here changed pretty drastically, so it's sunny and cold, and that's not really a great combination for me. So I apologize in advance. So today I want to talk a little bit about monorepos and what they are, why I use them, and some of the patterns and structures that I like to use when building in a monorepo. So I'm here in the Votura.io repository, and I've set this up as a monorepo out of the gate because it's easier to set it up in the beginning than to try and go back and turn it into one later on. Now, every project I do, I have a little bit of a different structure for it. It just depends on the size of the project and what all needs to go in it, what all needs to be shared between different apps, etc. So I'm going to start at the top here. Usually, what I like to do is I like to use PNPM as my package manager, right? It works really, really well with monorepos. There's this workspace file that you add, and I just add the folders where my different apps and packages live. And it just picks it up and makes sure everything stays connected. Really great. Love it. Don't leave home without it. I also use TurboRepo to handle all of my build, dev, whatever tasks that I need to do between my applications. So essentially what I can do with TurboRepo is come in here and I can define a dev task. Then I can go into my package.json and set up a single dev script that runs turbo dev. I'm just filtering on my web application right now. These projects don't have any dev scripts in them, so they won't run, but it will pick up and run my web project here. Okay. So that's pretty cool. And that's just the high level setup of what I like to do. Now, usually what I see in monorepos is there's an apps folder and a packages folder, right? And apps is where all of your applications are going to live. They don't need to be the same framework. I've done monorepos where I have a Next.js web app and a Nest backend API that I interact with. I've done ones where it's a Next application, but then an Astro marketing site, right? You can mix and match what you put in here, but essentially everything that goes in under apps is applications that you're going to be running and deploying somewhere. Okay? Doesn't matter where, but this is where you're going to run and do things. Now, this is a pretty small example of packages. So, taking a step back and going a little bit higher level, monorepos are really nice when you have code that needs to be split and shared across applications. All I do is I link my applications to the packages locally, it picks them up and builds with them. Okay, I don't have to build and publish a separate package to NPM and maintain a separate package on NPM. I can just have this all right here. I can have all my applications right here, and I can just share these packages between them. Okay. Now, what kind of packages you have, again, really depends on what you are building. It's going to change for every application. I have not had the same structure between apps in any project I've done. So, for example, this tsconfig has all of my basic tsconfig options, and I can just share this across with projects. How I've done this in other apps is I have a single folder called config, and then I have a tsconfig project underneath it, right? Like that. And then I can also do Tailwind and have Tailwind config. I can also add ESLint and prettier config in here, right? And share those configuration files between packages and applications. It just depends on what you're trying to do. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that. So I have a tsconfig here, and this is great. I use it in these and in my app. Now, how I like to break it down is usually I have a common core shared package that shares utility functions and constants around in my applications. This package is usually shared by not just apps, but also other packages. So right now, all I have is CN, which if you're using Tailwind and Shad CN, you know what this is. This is your class management helper method, right? I also have constants. So like I have paths that I can list out all of my authentication paths in for this constant, right? And then what I can do in my app is I can go, I believe I'm using this in my middleware. Let's see. Yep. So then I can just import it like a package or as a package, and I now have access to this variable here. So the other package that I usually include is UI. Now I'm using Shad CN for this project again, so a lot of these components are just going to be Shad components, but like my Max with wrapper, it's not a Shad component. This is just a helper that I can import and use in my application to constrain with, right? So super helpful. Again, this is stuff that's going to be shared across applications that is not really specific to any one particular feature. Because this project is small for right now, I'm leaving all of my business logic within my web project here. There's not really a good reason that I have, at least yet, to start splitting out business logic into its own package. I have done that before, and I'll explain that setup and reasoning. But for right now, it's just way easier to put things like next auth in here, right? It's a lot simpler to just have in one place. So when would you want to break your business logic out as its own package? Well, there's a number of reasons. One is if your business logic in here is getting super bloated, like you have a ton of features, a ton of different modules, and it's kind of getting hard to maintain. The bigger reason is you have multiple apps that need to access business logic. And this is especially true, I have found, in Next, where you are more so doing server actions and server components, right? So let's pretend, for example, that I have an admin app in here, and I need to do some kind of listing for posts. Okay. So here in my web app, I would declare a data access function to get all of my posts with some kind of filter. Okay. Cool. But now in my admin, what if I want to see all posts across workspaces? Well, it would be kind of silly to rewrite the same function or copy paste the same function over into the admin when the parameters and output are going to be the same. I would rather put it in a package, either called features, modules. I go back and forth on them. I kind of like modules a little bit more than features, but to each their own. And right, and then I could have posts as a folder in here, and then I would have data access. And then in here I could do and then I could use this in my web app and my admin to fetch the data that I need, right? Now, you can talk about like security and like, well, users who are using the web app should only be able to access posts that they are a member of the workspace of, right? And, admins should be able to see everything. Yes. This is data access only. This is only for querying the database. All of that logic can stay in this app. You can also extract it to a use case or service or some kind of helper that does those authorizations, right? So it really just depends on the scale as to when you would want to start breaking this out. I've done large projects with this structure where modules or features, I think I called it in that project, contains all of the business logic needed for that application. And I even took it a step further and abstracted some of the repositories and like core services that would be needed because they could potentially be shared across projects, and extracted that to its own package called infrastructure. You can go as crazy as you want, or you can go as simple as you want. Generally, what I like to do is start simple and start to pull things out into packages as the project grows in size and complexity. The one thing I did forget to show and talk about is how easy it is to actually use these packages in your applications. So, like my UI and utils packages here, all I did in my actual web app was reference them like this with this workspace colon star. This is a PNPM thing and if you're using npm, you don't have to have this workspace. It doesn't work. I don't know about Yarn. I really don't use Yarn. I haven't used Yarn in a long time, but this is a PNPM thing. But all you do is you just reference it like this, and then if I open up a terminal, all you have to do is PNPMI, and it will add the packages for you. And if I go into my node modules, you will see that it is linked. Pretty cool. Pretty cool. Now, there's a whole nother little argument as to should your packages be built and your apps consuming like the compiled JavaScript. I usually don't do that because that's just an extra thing I have to manage, and Next will build it for me, or my build tool will just build it for me as it's included in here. So that's not usually something I worry about. If you're building an application where you do have packages that you do want to publish and let other people consume to NPM, yeah, add a build step. That makes a lot of sense, and then just have your web apps consume the built output of that package. But for this project right now and for other projects I've done, having that extra step just adds a lot more complexity than I'm willing to deal with. So yeah, thank you guys for watching. Again, this is just a quick little Monorepo rundown. I really like the power and flexibility that this gives. I can just add more applications or packages as needed. My single app doesn't become super bloated. Really nice. So if you like this video, make sure you give it a like, maybe leave a comment if you're using Monorepos and what your experience has been with them. And yeah, if you want to see more content like this, make sure you subscribe. Thanks, and I'll see you guys in the next one.